Oh well, hey, and welcome to Sin Sideways. Today, on this episode, as you can tell by my hat, we're going to be working on some Ford performance vehicles, or as you could say, creating some performance vehicles. So on this episode, we're going to try and turbo my Falcon Ute. Yeah, look at that. Looking beautiful. So first things first, you're going to need a bit of pipe. You can use your old exhaust pipe, very handy. I'm not in my case. I don't really want to ruin my exhaust. I want to keep it just in case, I don't know, I might want to take off the turbo one day, whatever, or sell it. What you can do is go to your wreckers, you can get the bit of pipe. Alright, so I'm looking for part of an exhaust at my local scrapyard off a Falcon. So of this Falcon here, it's a BA or BF, doesn't really matter. We have the exhaust in there. And if you're a real fair dinkum Aussie, you know what I'm talking about. That's the goods right there. Okay, so I'm going to cut this exhaust a bit shorter so I can actually work it in the car, because at the moment it's too long banging around. You can't really work out really any angles. Alright, so I've cut this corner bit off. What I'm going to try and do is try and reshape it. See, it's a bit long, overlaid. Try and make it more circle with the vise. You can use a hammer, beat it off, whatever. Just try and get it so it all matches up. As you can see, the vise makes short work of it, literally seconds. Gives me exactly what shape I'm aiming for. Just gonna try and beat that off a little bit out the side. And perfect. Unfortunately, we've got a bit of bloody rain outside, so it might hold us off for a bit. I don't know what's going on with the weather around here. It's meant to be in Australia. It's the second day of summer. Bloody raining. I'm wearing jumpers. It's cold. What's going on? Okay, so I've cut the ball end bit down real short. I've tried to file it relatively straight. So I've got the exhaust, the start of the J-pipe mocked up. Got the MIG out, the big bad dirty MIG welder. When we got a TIG welder right there. Just a bit easier. I'm just going to put a tack on it, a couple of them. Done some lines to try and mark out where it would be and keep the same position as I put it on the car where I wanted it. Looked at the angle and then I've just done some lines so to try and keep it the same spot. So that MIG welder, that can go get effed, it can leave. It's so annoying every time I try and use it. It'll work for a little bit and it's like so messy, disgusting. I don't even want to look at the welds. The wire starts like coming out. Like it doesn't, I don't even want to explain it. Anyway, just got the TIG welder here. Figured I may as well just do it properly. This is my first attempt at trying to weld pipes together. It's actually like heaps harder than you'd imagine. I'm guessing, I'm just trying out. I've like grinded the edges on an angle, so like the welds have like a valley to kind of sit in, because I'm pretty sure that's what you're meant to do. So I have the pipe welded, the first bit. It might not look too pretty, but I made sure I've got full penetration, which is what's important. It's 11:30 at night. I just had my first stuff up. I'm pretty annoyed. I was like cutting this along, and then boom. Not gonna get my pie cut out of that. I don't really have any more pipe. I should have cut off a bit of extra pipe while I was there. Didn't even think about it. Wasn't going to use this pipe, much of it. I was going to try and get thicker pipe. So I have this scrap V6 Commodore exhaust. There's some good pipe in there, the right thickness. And use that. Yeah, it looks like we might be using some Holden parts on the Falcon. That's blasphemy. So I've cut the bits of extra pipe off the Commodore exhaust. Now it's crazy to note this. So we actually have one of those ball end flanges at the exact right size for a Falcon on a Commodore exhaust. So if you have a stock Commodore exhaust, BF Falcon or an AU Falcon, you can all get this flange off them, same size. But just to note, the holes are a bit bigger on the Commodore one, so you would have to use washers or even weld in some metal to fill up the space so the heads of the bolts don't go through the holes because they're that big. So I'm trying a hacksaw to try and get some straight cuts, because it really is hard to get straight cuts with the grinder through pipes. I'm sure if you've done it heaps of times, you probably got a little trick to it and you're good at it. You can do it. It just takes a lot of attention to get it right every time. You can't rush it. So I got a really good cut. I started it with a grinder, held it so the disc is flat in it, so it's cutting straight, and then do the rest with hacksaw. Alright, so I have another bit of pipe set up off the Commodore. I'm just going to tack it together. I tested it out against the Falcon pipe. It's actually a tiny bit smaller, just small enough that the pipe fits just inside the other pipe. So I guess it's not perfect, but yeah, it works. It's not what you want because it creates turbulence. Any sort of little like lips, anything in your manifold, turbulence, you don't like that stuff, ruins the flow. Plus what I'm welding right now is quite skeptical. It's a bit of a sharp angle, but it's gonna save me a good hour of making this this J pipe. Makes things real easy, and I've looked at it, it pretty much works. I'm just gonna have to extend it a little bit more. So just tacking it up, gonna test it, but we're pretty much done with only a few welds, just because I'm kind of cutting a corner. Pie cut lobs the back weld in it, which is like, no one wants to do that. So I'm just like, yeah, speeding it up a little bit, cut it on a bit of a sharp angle. So then I just spun the pipe around the other way, and then it like fits, you know what I mean? Like, it's a little bit sharp, but backyard build. Doesn't need to be perfect. So it turns out this Commodore pipe, I thought it was the same size, is like 1/4 of an inch smaller. But on the muffler where it slips together, I've cut that part off, and it's like a adapter that expands 2.5 inches. So it works. Perfect. So I have the monstrosity J pipe mocked up. It's really a J, this one. It's all tacked up. I just tried it on the car. I'll actually quickly put it back on to show you because I'm about to modify it again. I'm really annoyed. I like have one of the nuts in a socket and put it there to the stud to try and do it and it's just vanished. I didn't hear it drop. I didn't see it fall out of the socket. The nut is just gone. I've spent 20 minutes looking for it, and it's just like I can't find it. So my problem is it's touching the brake line. Realistically, it doesn't stop it from working, but I don't like that. I could bend the brake line down away from it, which is a good idea. I want to actually just modify the pipe as well a bit to try and get it away from the brake line. So if I cut it around here a bit, I can spin it up and away from the brake line. Other than that, it's looking good so far. I've took the reservoir off. I think I'm just going to make a custom tank for it. It's a lot better. I'll cut it up again, so I've worked out where to kind of twist it to. We're going to see what that looks like. So I don't really seem to be getting anywhere with this power steering line. To be honest, I think I might just bend it down. I've got the pipe fitting really nice. I don't really want to keep changing it because I like how it fits. Just bend that steering line down and then have a problem. Alright, so I think we're away from the line. It's hard to tell. We don't have the bolt to actually test it, but should be alright. That looks pretty good to me. It's a nice gap. It's definitely in a better position up right now, I think. Alright, I've grinded up the pipe, cleaned it up for the welds, prepared it, wiped it down with some thinners. I like turbo Falcons. What about you? So as you can see, there's pretty good clearance now on the J-pipe. Just going to take it off and finish welding it up. Paint it, probably heat wrap it. Got the T3 flanges on the way from EFI Solutions, so they should be soon. So most of the J-pipe is actually now finished. I've welded it. Not the best welds at all, very bad some of them, but completely penetrated through it, done the job. Now is a T3 flange I've ordered. I'll need a weld on when it comes. I've hit it with the grinder and the flappy disc. I'm gonna use a wire wheel on it, try and see if we can get it nice and shiny. So I have the J-pipe made up, pretty much done. Okay, so the front bar's off the Falcon, and I actually have the passenger side guard off it. Yeah, I'm gonna paint the bar. I've got a new replacement guard that's not dinged, and try to tidy it up, and now we can try and mock up the intercooler. No problem, so I don't have an intercooler, so I've got to order one, but I'm going to use a tape measure and I'm going to measure up what will fit, try and work out what will be suitable and work out nicely. I don't really think I'm going to go with the water to air cooler anymore. Bit of a stuff round. Alright, so I've got to move the Skyline so I can move the MG, so I can move the Falcon so I can move the Skyline. So I can move the Falcon. Man, this Skyline's playing games with me. I got it to work. So I've taken the fuel pump out of the blue R31, put it in the silver one, except still didn't work. But I've got it to work by using a Makita battery to give direct power to the new fuel pump. I can get it to run, and as soon as I disconnect it, the car turns off. So I might leave the Makita battery full power to the fuel pump and then move the car and then disconnect it. I'm taping it in place so I can drive it. So we're turboing the Falcon, this is cool, but we've got a problem, the oil drain. Now, you could just tap that into the side of the sump. I don't really like, I'm not all for that. I think it's a little bit dodgy. I'm sure you probably think I'm a bit dodgy. But anyway, I want the oil drain fitting welded to the sump. The sump's aluminium. I only have a DC TIG welder, so that means I'm gonna have to find someone with the AC TIG welder. I have a few people in mind. I'll have to take off the sump, and if you have an AU, you'd know that means dropping the whole K-frame / cross member or pulling out the motor. I don't have an engine brace to nicely drop the cross member, so I'm going to pull out the whole motor, and I've ordered some engine bearings, and since we're turboing it, we're going to slap a new timing chain and tensioner on it. Alright, so we have this bolt on the top here, and you just get the screwdriver, try that, and then you can pull it off. Just got the motor out. I don't know what's going on around here. Looks a bit worrying. So I have the motor out of the ute on the stand. So we do have intake manifold leaks, so it would be a very wise idea to change this gasket. So I've just got a delivery of the intercooler piping, $150. Got this box full of intercooler piping. So there's 4 different types of pipes and there's 2 of each. So there's 8 pipe, 2 bags of clamps, some joiners for $151 including postage. 2.5 inch pipe. So I'm not running 3 inch, that's a bit laggy I reckon. Like 3 inch is good for more of like higher horsepower. We're not really going to be running that, you know, high of a horsepower. 2.5 inch kind of fits really well. Small rear housing on the turbo, so it's going to spool up really quick. And then with the small intercooler pipe in, this thing should just come on boost real hard, real quick. So I've got a hole saw, 72mm, slightly bigger than the intercooler piping. So no problems fitting it through, but it's not too big. Alright, so I'm in the engine bay. I've drilled a hole underneath the battery mount where it sits, right there. I have a feeling the hole saw is actually timber because the drill bit is not going through, but I actually got the hole saw drill bit off a different hole saw, so we'll find out. So that's where we are on the other side. So basically that whole top bit would come out and then the pipe can come through here. So unfortunately the hole saw is actually for wood, so it didn't work. So I drilled some holes in it to like kind of along where the marking from the hole saw was, so I knew where a circle, like a proper circle is. Drew some holes. Now I'm going to use my mini grinder and try and grind it out. The metal is very thick too. Alright, the mini grinder doesn't actually fit. I can't really use it. Does not like its life in there. So it looks like I'm going to have to go buy a hole saw, and I need a claw puller for the harmonic balancer because I swear I used to have one, but I must have lost it. Anyway, I've got to get a new one. I need one of the big claw pullers for the harmonic balancer for the Falcon motor. Motor intake sock. So I have this filthy Intech sock rocker cover in my workshop and try and polish her up. See what a polished Intech rocker cover looks like. So I made a start on it with this little wheel, just take a before shot. So that's where I've used the wheel. Alright, so I have a little bit of a dilemma with this AU Falcon motor. So the harmonic balancer on the AUs, be it barrows and stuff, they have a specially designed harmonic balancer puller tool. It costs about $200 to buy. I would have to wait, a week or two for it to come in the mail, maybe 2 weeks. Gonna have to pay $200 to pull off the harmonic balancer. The harmonic balancer's already broken, it's wobbling when the car driving. So I'm just gonna knock it off. I'm gonna smash it off. I don't care if I break the harmonic balancer because it's already broken. It's actually cheaper to buy a whole new harmonic balancer and break the one that's on it than to buy the tool to remove it. And it's already broken. Alright, so I've also just found out the timing chain kit I ordered a Nason one. It was $150. I got it, I thought it was the cheapest I could find it. I've just found, and I got it down from 200 from a different site. It's 200. Got it for 150. Thought I was killing it. Just found it for $90 on sale on Mace website. So Mace Engineering has an AU timing chain kit for $90. But what it does, for some weird reason, it's got me worried. It says on their kit on Mace for $90 that it does all of them. It does AUs, but it only does the first series of AU. It doesn't do AU2, and that's a bit of a worry because, like, if that kit's different, what's to say the Nason kit's not different? I don't know. They got me worried. Yeah, so I'm not having much luck getting this harmonic balancer off. Even with hitting it with a hammer and a pry bar, it's not really doing me any favors. So I'm drilling holes into it. I'm gonna pull it off. Needs replaced anyway. So I drilled out the holes and I've tapped the thread. I've got the balancer bolted in. I just need to make the space for there. Put a nut, oversized nut and some washers. Seems like things were going a little bit too well. Fucking harmonic balancer fell, even though I was holding it, and knocked the oil everywhere on the whole ground. So I've gone to the shop, got a few things. Yesterday I got some steel wool. Then just now I've got these 2000 grit sanding pads. I don't really particularly need them. I have 2000 grit sandpaper, just make it a bit easier on some spots. Now what I have got is this. It's called Mother's Aluminium Polish. That is what should make it look real shiny. That with the steel wool. So first, I'm going to have to sand it all up. The stuff, I was using this little wheel. It's not really that strong. That wire brush is a bit too strong. It's left a few little wire marks in it, but I'll sand them out. So I've been using some of this WD with it when I sand it. It really helps a decent amount. Stops the sandpaper clogging up. Helps like sand it faster. I've been sanding it with the 500 for ages, so might move on to the 2000. It's not perfect, could get sanded heaps more, but I really don't want to have to spend days and days doing this. Right, so I didn't really like that sanding pad too much. It's got the hole in the middle, so those little sticky bits can put scratches all through your job if you push too hard, so I didn't really like it. Stopped using it pretty quick. Sanded it by hand. I might use a bit of steel wool first by itself, then I'll use the polish and the steel wool. But yeah, that's 2000 grit. To be honest, if you look up here, all that pitting, I could probably do a bit better job there. up the top, but it's looking good. So this is the rocker cover, pre-polish. Alright, so I'm like halfway through polishing it. That stuff is pretty good. I rate it. So the water pump's off, harmonic balancer's off. This bracket I've taken off or put back on, and the wires get tucked behind it. The crank angle sensor. So the timing case, it's ready to come off, but it's getting caught, I believe, on the chain guide in there. It's getting caught on the chain. So I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the cam pulley. What I've noticed is the time chain's actually yellow under all this grime and dirt. I just seen a little tiny dot in the corner and I rubbed it, and now I've got 2 yellow ones. So now it's kind of made the timing a lot easier. I can understand it. I was worried, I was scared to take it apart because there's no marking on the chain, but now there's actually yellow. So I've got the tensioner out. There's a cap for it, and then you unscrew the cap and then you turn the tensioner with an Allen key hex head. Alright guys, so I'm on crutches, not very good. It's been like 2 or 3 days. My knee is like, I don't know what's wrong with it. I haven't gone to the doctors. I'm not going to the doctor. Yeah, I'm just gonna like deal with it, but I'm getting kind of bored, so I'm just gonna go try build the motor anyway on crutches. So we'll see how that goes. Still waiting on heaps of parts. I need to order piston rings still and a harmonic balancer, but I want to measure the piston rings that are already in the motor just to make sure they're the right ones. And the harmonic balancer, I was going to try and run a cheaper E-series one on it, but I don't know. I've read something that like the timing marks won't line up and you have to make new time marks, which isn't very hard to do. I could do that quite easily, but I don't know. I just don't like, I've looked at the balancers too and they say it's the same, but I reckon it looks slightly different. Like it's a bit of a recess in, I think it's the AU one. I don't know. I'm just gonna buy the AU one. Alright, so there's a little keyway there. So your cam gear goes onto the cam in the exact spot. So the cam gear is going to be in the right timing, and then you've got your yellow marks there. If you slip, that slit's meant to be between the 2 yellow links. Alright, so there's this 10mm bolt head here in the top of the head that goes into your chain guide. I've taken that out because the chain guide looks like it's attached to the cover, so you're not going to be able to pull your head off with that bolt still in, as well as this 10mm full of water line that goes to there. The soft rubber hose, the hard metal that goes around to the front of the water pump, attaches to your head. So you could take off the thermostat housing, or you can just undo the 10mm bolt. So I've managed to free up the cam gear from the chain, pulling the chain to the back of the gear and pulling the gear forward. So the cylinder head is off. It does not look very nice inside. I recommend pulling off the exhaust manifold if you're taking off your head, because it is really heavy with the exhaust manifold still on. Or have 2 people to lift it. I struggled, but I do have a bad knee, so that doesn't help. The main reason being, when I took it off, I was worried I might have gouged the deck of the block with this corner of the head because I could barely lift it. So hopefully that hasn't happened. I'll check for it. They seem to be alright. Top of the pistons look pretty filthy. I think you see here, if you notice, in the tops of all the pistons there's a little recess. So that is the front of the piston. So basically, like, your intake and exhaust sides of the piston are different sometimes on the wall, most of the time. So
to make sure if you had this spun the wrong way around, so say the intake side on the exhaust, that would be at the back. So you can make sure these dents go to the front. So my timing case is catching, it's not coming off. Oh, it just come off. So I've got to try and work out what's going on with the timing. So there, looks like another yellow chain. So we've got the two at the top. So there'll be a marking surely on this crank gear where the yellow chain has to sit. So I think you'll actually notice as well, the intake side of the piston has that little indent in it, as well as the little notch at the front. So some very light scoring on the crank. This is the first piston out. You can see there in the bearing, very light scoring. So after I pulled the head off, on the ground I found this little bit of metal. I wasn't exactly sure where it's from. I took the head off, I turned the motor upside down, and I took the timing case off. So it's from somewhere to do with that. If you look on the head here, you'll see this. Slides in there. As you can see, no blowouts in the head gasket. It's all good for compression. All the galleries and jackets are fine as well. Only real thing is just the build up on all the valves and inside the combustion chamber and on top of the pistons, a little carbon build up and the residue, oil residue. Alright, so I got the head into my garage. I'm gonna try and push it in the workshop. I've got my bung legs. I feel like old man pushing a head on a trolley. The old man would have just carried it. Oh, limping around. This is horrible. She looks super excited. Because I don't have a lot of space and the block's sitting outside, so the block's all wrapped up with glad wrap. Out of all the crankshaft conrod journals, where the connector and rods for your pistons bolt up to the crankshaft, those parts where the bearings sit, there is light scoring on only the first journal. It's not very bad. Reusable, fine. Doesn't need a machine, it's fine. It's so minimal, seen a lot worse. Well, miraculously, with a great struggle, I've actually rolled it in here into the little workshop and to get it up on the bench. We're going to do some work on the head. Alright, so I've just got a notification that the seller has actually cancelled the order for the timing chain that I ordered. I called up my local parts shop before I ordered it online, and he said they were out of stock. He's like, I can't get you one. So I'm assuming what's happened, the guy online's the posted the order and for some reason they must be out of stock too, shortage problem, cancelled the order on me. So it is good and it's bad because I was worried about the timing chain not fitting. So now at least this time I'm gonna get to the bottom of it and find out what the difference is and if there is any at all. And if there's not a difference, well, it doesn't matter because I already found out that Mace does the timing kit for $50 cheaper. You can get it for $99 or $100 instead of $150. So that's cool. But yeah, I don't know. I think there might actually be a difference with the AU2 and AU3 timing chain kit. Or I don't know what it would be. Maybe something with the guides or something. I don't know. So unfortunately, I think this might be the end of this episode. We're gonna make it into a 2-part series just because we're waiting on parts to come. It's Christmas time, you know, nothing's coming, it's gonna take ages.
I still got to measure some parts, you know. Better off, we'll just get this episode out, and then the next part is going to be where it all happens, a real interesting part. So get the boring stuff out of the way, and yeah, stay tuned for the next one. If you're watching this and you're not already subscribed, you know, would really appreciate if you subscribe. It would be great, and it works for you too, because then you'll get to see the new episode as soon as it comes out. You get notified. So thanks for watching. Hope you learned a thing or two. Get ready for some turbo Falcon action coming soon.